Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for August the 27th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is hour one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, to do so in the traditions of our founding fathers, using the supreme law of the land, including all the checks and balances, by the way, the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America. We reject revolution unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. Welcome to the broadcast. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. Lance Migliaccio's with me. Welcome to our first video broadcast, Lance.
Hey, Sam. Thank you so very much. Very happy to be here, as usual, with the Liberty Roundtable listeners and subscribers. Appreciate them tuning in. And, of course, man, it's rise and grind, baby, doing what we do.
That is for sure. The Big Mig, ladies and gentlemen, the tip of the spear. They do a radio and TV show on Rumble and YouTube. Well, I guess they got kicked off YouTube. We'll have to try to get that back. Yeah. Anyway, they do that every day, and then you do your crypto shows and more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got our regular show, which is 9 a.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Standard. And, of course, we've got the Crypto Power Hour. Now, that show just got moved. Rumble asked us to move it. That is now Big Mig show is 11 a.m. Screwed that up. And
so 11 a.m. Eastern.
Power Hour is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard.
Okay, perfect. There you have that. There's so much going on. We're going to get George in the mix. Is George there yet? Not yet, huh?
Not yet. I think he's trying to get the browser to work.
All right, I don't know what the difference is. This is our first time, folks, doing the video stuff. And I don't even know how much of the video stuff we'll make live. It depends on how it turns out. But the radio is indeed happening per normal, so that's good. And how you mix radio and TV and everything else. Very few people have been successful at radio and TV at the same time. Back in the day, the only one that was able to get that done, Lance, was Larry King, because he did primarily an interview show. And it was just those guys sitting kind of, on the stage doing an interview. And it worked so well for radio. Everybody else has kind of tried and failed. But the new podcasters are starting to be successful at it. So, we'll see how that turns out. I'm kind of a little bit of an old school guy going, I think radio and TV ought to be separate. But there's others that are convinced, hey, they go hand in hand and it works great. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be all part of the new media. Of course, podcasting become insanely popular, but now the videocast, it's just as equally as popular. Some people are doing dual broadcasting. We've been doing singular, but I love this, actually. I love having this dual content option where we can expand the listeners and subscriber base, get to more people, because, it's all about educating and unifying the country one episode at a time, Sam.
Amen to that. It's about, in my opinion, platform availability, too. If you do radio and TV together, the TV platforms can double down and support that. The audio platforms can support that. And really, it's about distribution points at this point, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm actually surprised that Rumble doesn't have a standalone audio podcast.
They'll get there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I say they'll get there because YouTube, believe it or not, just celebrated its 10th year in what's called YouTube Music. And most people don't even kind of really understand or realize they're using YouTube Music all the time. And YouTube Music is its own category on YouTube, and they're adding features to basically try to derive parity with Spotify now. So that's a 10-year celebration for YouTube, of all people.
Yeah, that's interesting. And we actually just got back on YouTube. We just got back on, but George just set the channel. I don't even know if we're fully streaming yet. Well, they didn't unsuspend us. We had to set up another account. I think that's our third or fourth account. But, really the stuff we got suspended for was ridiculous. It was CDC and VAERS information straight off the government website. And they decided that was just too much health truth.
Amen. And that's a problem. Hopefully under the Trump world, things will get a little bit better. I know a lot of companies are backing off from DEI. They're backing off from the climate hoax. They're backing off from the lies about the 2020 elections. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But I've got some interesting news from this day of history, Lance. Did you realize August 27th, 1859, America invented the oil company? Did you know that?
I didn't know that. I could have guessed it was roughly in this time period, but I didn't have an exact year.
Yeah, man. August 27th was actually the day 1859. Here's the interesting tidbit about this. Edwin L. Drake is the guy's name. He was working on behalf of the Seneca Oil Company, formerly the Pennsylvania Rock Oil Company. And I guess they succeeded. He succeeded where many before him failed. Along Oil Creek, it was near. It was in Pennsylvania, I guess. He drilled the 69.5 feet, struck oil before they had kind of surface oil, and they kind of played with things. It was more than just a pocket of oil. It was the first well in the United States that literally we felt like, hey, this could be another viable source of energy. Okay, so they gathered petroleum in small ways before that. But, hey, this well from Drake proved, hey, you can tap it deliberately. There's sufficient quantities to be real. And they started with this well, which produced about 25 to 40 barrels a day. And, of course, it's dwarfed now and all that. But very interesting starting in 1859. I didn't realize it was that early.
You know, I didn't know that either. I wasn't actually confirmed the date. I thought it was late 1800s. But you know what I think is also interesting about that? A whole 69 feet, Sam. You had to dig down a whole.
I know. We struggle to get water at that level.
Well, you know, nowadays the holes are much deeper. Of course, they're fracking and everything else to drain the oil out, get the oil out of the ground. Although some people say we have a limited reserve of oil, and other people say there's an unlimited reserve. That much like diamonds, they've created this belief that oil is not unlimited. And I don't know what's true. You know, I'm not an oil expert.
Well, here's what I know. The idea that it's fossil fuels is, in my opinion, a non-starter, no-go. Think about it. Are you telling me that all these years the bones of dinosaurs have been fueling our oil? You know, I don't believe it. Dr. Drum Corsi wrote a book about this, and he basically maintains that oil is generated from the mantle of the earth.
Yeah, and I've seen some of that stuff, and it doesn't surprise me that that's there's a lot of theories on it. I'm going with the theory that there's much more there than what's available. Let's face it, the De Beers Diamond Company did an amazing job of proving, of creating this belief that there's a limited number of diamonds. They've loaded the vaults with them. They limit the supply that comes out of the market along with other big diamond mining companies. I think there's way more oil than they're telling us. That's what
I think you're right about that. I also think, we got to remember God's in charge. And a lot of people have these discussions and leave God out of it. I don't think you can do that, though. I think God's the creator of the resources, and he'll decide if there's plenty. He says, biblically, there's plenty and room to spare. Anyway, interesting. In 1859, George Balloutine, welcome to the show. It turns out that, hey, we created the first oil company. What do you think of that?
You asking me when? 59, we created the first oil company? I think it was great.
That's right.
Why wouldn't it be?
Oh, we think it's awesome. We're just celebrating it's this day in history is the point.
Oh, this day in history. Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty neat, huh?
Yeah. Too bad it didn't continue with that all throughout U.S.'s history of taking oil from the U.S., our grounds, they had to stop a little bit, go back. Now we're getting oil dominance again, but I don't know. You think we can get a law where we just keep it like that? Is that possible?
I would sure pray so and hope so and think we ought to do that just as a course of reality. I don't even understand how some of these other groups got the technology, Lance. That's an interesting tidbit, too. How did all these other, countries that, and I don't mean to be critical or whatever, backwards countries, how do they end up with, all this oil technology and everything else? That we must have given it to them, huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I always wonder whether it's given or theft. You never really understand what's going on, or somebody deciding they wanted a second paycheck and they wanted to sell the technology on the sly. But that's greed, right? Isn't that what greed does? You never really know for sure. I'm always surprised about some of these countries and how their technology, it seems to be running parallel to the U.S.'s ability when we've got this unlimited budget. So I think it's one of those things that you have to really, you have to go, things that make you go, Sam.
Yeah, that's one. That's one of them, to say the least. There's so much news to cover, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost difficult to really know where to start with some of the news. One tidbit that relates, so we're going back to 1859 for the first oil company. Now the headline says the era of the AI-generated ransomware is upon us. Wired.com. You want to respond to that one, Lance?
Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that. At the end of the day, is it really a new era? That's the question. I don't know. I'm unsure about that. I think you flipped to George on that. I'm not sure what to say to that.
George?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
AI-generated ransomware has now arrived.
AI-generated ransomware. Well, AI, I mean, it's messed up. It's going to... I don't know what happened.
All right, hang tight, ladies and gentlemen.
We got music.
You are listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody better have a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep, and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Lance Migliaccio, George Balloutine, yours truly, the Big Mig, teams up with Liberty Roundtable Live twice a month, 2 hours. We dig it. Check out thebigmig.com. Check out their incredible radio show on the weekends. And best of all, check out their incredible TV shows on Rumble, X, YouTube, and the list just goes on and on. So, George, sorry to cut you off with the break. Right before the break, I mentioned, hey, AI now, I guess is supposed to be generating ransomware now, and the days are here, says Wired. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, it's inevitable. That's what's going to continue to happen. Like, listen, anything with AI, it's going to continue to, create hacking software that's probably better than anybody's ever seen if they don't have it already. So the question is, what do we have to create to combat that? So can you tell AI to create stuff to, combat the ransomware and software? But most of the time, it's the person that's the security risk. It's you're the person's the one that's going to click on some email or link before reading it and going through it. So you're the security risk, and so the best thing against this is to educate yourself on what not to do and what to do. So,
amen. George is spot on, Lance.
I think the issue is, Sam, you have to look at quantum computing's here to stay. AI is getting more and more sophisticated. We use it regularly on our show. We use it regularly to do research and also to do, preparation, even creating thumbnail, background images, all sorts of things. And I think as AI continues to evolve, and now you add in the quantum computing that's there, NVIDIA just announced a new chip that's supposed to be groundbreaking and potentially a much more powerful chip than they've ever produced. Where does that put us? Because we're not on quantum encryption. So what are we going to do about that? We're going to need quantum encryption. I'm not saying the government doesn't have some versions of it, but what about the rest of the public? It's going to make your banking, your crypto wallets, and everything else extremely vulnerable until we make that full transition. Or we make the full transition to the blockchain, decentralized finance network. U.S. Commerce Secretary just announced they're going to be moving over a bunch of the data releases onto the blockchain. But this is something that we're going to need to move much more rapidly because the hacks are continuing to grow.
What you're going to have is AI being used by the hackers. So the black hats and the white hats are going to be all using AI. So it's going to be a kind of an AI throwdown, AI against itself. And what I find interesting is Talkers Magazine just had an article. And the article talked about what happens, and listen up, George and Lance, to see what you think about this. What happens when AI becomes your competitor? So just imagine that if I'm a nefarious person and I were to build an AI, bot and engine and environment, a database, etc., and it was all called the Big Mig bot. And the Big Mig bot took everything that you guys ever said or did publicly, took all the notes from all your shows, took all the video, all the audio, and then it cloned your voices, cloned your likenesses, and then it did a radio show that competes with the Big Mig. So now you got AI Big Mig and you got Big Mig real people. And so you could say this is kind of, child's play on one hand. On the other hand, you can say, oh, that's just a pipe dream. It's sci-fi. The truth is it can be done now. The average Joe can't do it to the level of convincing. They can do it, but it's a little bit cartoonish. It's a little bit not perfect. But the real people with real money and real resources have the ability to do this right now. And how long will it be till the average Joe has it? And then the question becomes, from a legal point of view, what happens? From a, are they going to be able to create George? And will AI be able to do it better than George and Lance? So remember, AI can remember everything that you guys have ever said. It can look up all the news and get the details accurate, things that you can't remember or whatever it knows. Will AI, the Big Mig, be better than the Big Mig, George?
As far as the show as a whole, no, it won't be, because you can't get original with AI. We are original, from our personalities to our thinking to on the spot coming up with solutions, whatever it is. So no, in that instance, no, AI cannot be the Big Mig. No way. Can't be Sam Bushman either, Liberty RoundTable. Not going to happen, because we are original.
Factually not true, but will the likeness be good enough, and might people learn to like the, quote, AI George better than the real George?
Definitely
Lance?
not.
What do you think, Lance?
I want to tell you something interesting. I heard about a hack, and the hack was exactly what you just described, that they took a CEO's voice and they left a voice message from the CEO's fabricated AI voice.
Yeah.
They sent it by email, and it was to download a packet of new software. And the tech people thought it was real. So they uploaded this packet, and of course it gave back-end access to the hackers because they actually believed. Now, that wasn't a video clip, it was an audio clip.
Sure.
So do I believe that definitely we're vulnerable? There's no doubt, because let's face it, we've messed around with AI, joking around, making, some quotes by Donald Trump to promote our own show, where it's Donald Trump saying, if you're not watching the Big Mig, you're missing out,
You want to see it?
Those were decent.
Yeah.
Hold on.
The newest
I got it.
Let's try, hold on. Let's see if George can really share his screen. We're talking some of the new technology.
Hold on. Ready?
Yeah. All right. We're keeping an eye on this. This is Liberty Roundtable Live. Yeah, so no audio for us, George.
Oh, you got no audio?
No.
No audio.
Really?
We can't hear it.
Yeah, so it could be our end. Again, we're using a new system and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the point is, it's very interesting what's happening in our society with regards to some of this AI stuff. It's just fascinating to kind of watch what happens. Ransomware is another discussion, too. What if they come back and say, hey, we're going to take you off the air and lock all your files down, Lance, George, and we're going to crank up the Big Mig AI show, and so you won't be on the air because you'll be just busy dealing with the ransomware, and we'll just take over.
Will I still be getting paid?
No.
Exactly.
Hey, listen.
No. You might get paid in dollars, but they'll be worthless as we move to digital.
Lance just said something. He goes, there was a AI video made, and it went out of the CEO, and it went out to all the people that work for the company, right?
This was an audio, but yes.
Yeah, okay. But what email did it come from? Did it come from the CEO's original email?
George, you're just showing your understanding of tech. What your point is that people have to pay attention.
Well,
that's spot on.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. So that email didn't generate from the CEO's email account. So that's why you always have to look.
George, I don't know how they generate that part. I can't say that you're not
George
right.
is right that we ought to look at that all the time. Because George is right. 9 out of 10 times you can catch it. Once in a while, though, the CEO's email could be hacked, and it could have came from his real email. We don't know that part.
It could. It's possible.
Yeah, we don't know how sophisticated that part of the hack was. But in fact, let's face it, you get a clip from George or myself, Sam, and it says, hey, click on this link, man. Great information. It's a good story. And they've embedded some kind of malware. And, of course, you're pretty tech savvy. You might wonder, because it would be a different thing than what we've done. But if it sounded, exactly like I am, sure, people are going to be vulnerable. Let's face it, especially the older demographic. They're not as tech savvy in general because they didn't grow up with it. These innovations, I'm already hearing a lot of concerns. Even the State Department's got a concern about quantum computing because you can take a normal, like a 128-bit 3-des encryption that would have been, or a 256 encryption, and you would have been okay with that. And now that's not even in the realm of being.
Yeah, back in the day, they said that would take you forever and a day to hack. Now it's like a 30-second hack, right?
Exactly.
Folks, it's getting crazy out there. I'll tell you that right now. All right, I want to tease this story. Well, I guess we can just get it started. We'll play the soundbite after the break. President Trump announced that current director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has got some groundbreaking information. Do you want to start, Lance?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big, big story, and I think what's crazy about this story is that we see these recurring themes within the Democrats, right? Now all of a sudden we see them committing, mortgage fraud regularly. It seems to be one of the things. Maybe they all communicate indirectly when they figure out a new scam, but burn bags. There appears to be this continued pattern of burn bags being found, secret skiffs, and this time this is related to the 2020 election corruption and fraud. She's saying that she found a large cache of burn bags with lots of documents related to the corruption of the 2020 election. Now, Kash Patel, last time it was Kash Patel. They found information that clearly they didn't want. It had to do with the Russian collusion hoax, and it was sitting in burn bags. Now, my question is, normally burn bags, after the information is put in the burn bag, they're pretty much sent to the burn that same day. That isn't something, I was around burn bags somewhat years ago. And normally the documents are shredded, put inside the burn bags, and usually it's a cross-cut shred, and then they're burned beyond that. They're sent right down to the incinerator. I'm not sure why they keep discovering them. Are these good employees that wanted to protect the information and didn't want to be part of the cover-up? Or are these just mistakes and sloppiness by the prior administration?
Or are we being lied to and this is all fabricated?
You think maybe that they're saying this to act like they're actually finding information? Yeah,
because I don't understand how you be in office for like 8 months, 9 months, and no one found them yet till now.
Yeah.
I'm just going.
There's no doubt. Yeah,
I don't know, man. Something just smells like a rat to me. When we get back, we'll break it down. George can chime in. We've also got an incredible soundbite with Tulsi Gabbard and President Trump at it's like a corporate board meeting kind of a thing or whatever. We'll talk about all that. You're watching and listening to Liberty RoundTable Live. Hard-hitting talk at your fingertips, ladies and gentlemen. Partnering with the Big Mig brothers, George and Lance. Yours truly continues in second. What, on all media? How's that?
Exposing corruption, informing citizens, pursuing liberty. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The federal government is taking charge of Washington, D.C.'s Union Station, currently managed by Amtrak. Transportation Secretary Duffy says the landmark transportation hub has fallen into disrepair. President Trump's anti-crime crusade scoring points with the American people.
A poll from the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs Research shows 81% of Americans see crime as a major problem in large cities. Slightly more than half of U.S. adults say they approve of the president's handling of crime. But the poll shows there is less public support for federal takeovers of local police departments. Trump has deployed the National Guard to the District of Columbia and has threatened to expand that model to other cities across the country. The poll also shows Trump's overall approval rating has increased to 45% now. Mike Hemp in Washington.
And pursuing his crime-crushing strategy in D.C., the president now seeks the most severe of punishments for convicted killers in the city.
In his ongoing crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C., the president said he wants murderers to pay the ultimate price.
If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty.
During a cabinet meeting at the White House, he said he doesn't know if the country is ready for capital punishment, but insisted we have no choice. D.C. and nearly 24 states have abolished the death penalty. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Firefighters in California's wine country making slow but steady progress in their battle to control the massive picket fire in Napa County. The blaze, which has charred just over 6,800 acres, is now just over 20% contained. On Wall Street, the Dow is up 97 points, the Nasdaq down 29. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. You work hard, you build wisely, your home has become one of your greatest assets. If you're staying put this summer, this might be the perfect time to put that equity to work. Whether it's funding a second home, helping your kids get their start, or simply creating more margin in your financial life, Mike and Brian at Fellowship Home Loans are the only ones I trust to guide you through it. They've done loans for my family. They tailor every loan to fit your goals. Fellowship is a direct lender and operates with your best interest in mind. If you're looking to access your equity through a refi or exploring a HELOC for some cash this summer for a second property, or maybe tackle those updates you've been putting off, start with people you trust. People I trust. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. or call 800-510-MIKE. 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans. Mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Freewater Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began, Freewater, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Freewater Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Freewater Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Freewater Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
Live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Lance Migliaccio, George Balloutine, the Big Brothers on your TV now. First time for Liberty RoundTable Live doing TV, so it's now Liberty RoundTable Media. Welcome to the show. Lance Migliaccio with us as well. We're talking about this issue. I don't even know how to respond to it. According to the president, these files contain evidence of massive evidence of wrongdoing. What are we talking about? We're talking about the burn bags discovered by Tulsi Gabbard. Kash Patel found some as well. Lance, I don't know. We were saying right before the pause, I'm a little concerned. On one hand, they say, maybe good employees found them, want to get to the truth, or good employees preserved them, didn't want to burn them like they were supposed to. How do you work for 7, 8, 9 months in the Trump administration and no one has found these yet? I kind of feel like we're slow walking everything to make a big deal out of everything, to make the American people feel like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. Oh my gosh, but we're getting to the bottom of it, thank the heavens. But yet it'll all be too late. I haven't really seen any serious prosecutions or actions. It's like 9 months later, we find the files. 2 years later, we look at the files. 3 years later, we decide to launch an investigation. I mean, it's psychotic. Lance, what do you think?
I don't know exactly. I'm not sure. You hear me hesitating. I don't know what to think. I've been very vocal about this administration. Our show, we go after both sides of the aisle. I don't protect anybody, including this administration, if I don't agree with them. We aren't supposed to talk about the Epstein files. Now, all of a sudden, the Oversight Committee has gotten, copies of the Maxwell audio recordings from that prison interview, and supposedly they've turned over a bunch of documents. I don't know exactly what they've turned over, but yeah, I'm a little uneasy. I don't know what to think. You might be right. Of course, getting into a new administration, figuring out what your job duties are, even for Tulsi Gabbard, getting entrenched, starting to really look around you. It could take months. These cabinet meetings take time. The reports take time. I'm sure Donald Trump, I'm sure he's somewhat of a slave master. The guy works for the energy level he's got and how he never seems to take any time off. So, but I do have concerns, Sam. This burn bag pattern, if in fact true, if it's not a sales pitch to the American public, what does that say about what really got burned? I mean, we're finding some stuff, but how much did the Biden administration destroy on their way out the door to try to protect themselves?
It's a fair question. And then the next question is this. Who has, the shredding and the burn bag? Obviously, if there's burn bags, quote, ready to go, there's obviously kind of a, I don't know what you want to call it, a process by which we destroy evidence. All I'm telling you is that alone brings up questions across party lines. Let's hear this soundbite, and then we'll get to George. Let's see if we can play this. Again, hopefully we can make this happen. Zach?
Films.
All right.
Hold on.
No,
Zach's playing this, right, Zach?
We've got no audio, and I think
I don't hear any audio.
He's playing is the Donald Trump.
All right, no audio. So we'll have to work on that. I don't know if it's muted or what's going on. George had the same issue, so it's on our end, guys. Sorry about this. We'll get it fixed. In the meantime, though, George, let's hear your thoughts on this.
Soundbite. So basically, it's Tulsi just confirming, and I can actually read the dialogue, Sam, if you want me to.
Sure, please.
President Trump says to her, and you also found many bags of information. I think they call them burn bags. They're supposed to be burned, and they didn't get burned, having to do with how corrupt the 2020 election was. And when will that all come out? Of course, she's the director of national intelligence. She responds, Mr. President, I will be the first to brief you once we have that information collected. But you're right. We are finding documents literally tucked away in the back of safes in random offices in these bags and in other areas, which again speaks to the intent of those who are trying to hide the truth from the American people and trying to cover up the politicization that was led by people like John Brennan and James Clapper and others that have caused really immeasurable harm to the American people and to our country. Now, that's a big deal. And she goes on to say she has a long list of things that they're investigating. We have the best going after this, election integrity being one of them. So I think this is a big deal. I mean, what we're getting is confirmation.
It's a big deal if real, Lance.
Yes, of course. If legitimate, and if they're not fabricating it for a great sound bites, and great media coverage. I mean, this is a big deal. We have heard from other sources, though, Sam, that there are investigations along many topics across the board. But, I thought the same thing of the Epstein files. I'd heard the same story. And yet, when that came around, Donald Trump decided that we all shouldn't talk about Epstein any longer because it wasn't important.
Epstein. Oh, I see. Sorry. So let me chime in here. So
please,
let's go about burn bags first. And so this is coming from a close friend of mine, just retired from the FBI a few years ago. I'm not going to say his name, rather keep his name out of it. So when you have burn bags, once the agent, whoever's putting the paperwork in a bag and putting it in to be destroyed, once it goes into that section where it's destroyed, he does not have access to it. That's it. Now, if these bags are true that they said they found them, then wherever they put those bags got given to, someone along that area either put them for safekeeping, didn't want to destroy them, if they're real. So, but we'll find out the process, because you can't, if you look at the whole situation as a whole, we don't even need the FBI burn bags, because they already had the evidence, but it will just prove that the FBI was corrupt and complicit in helping a coup to overthrow a president.
George, if you complain there's burn bags, you can just slow walk the whole deal, right?
Well, that was going to be my next point, and I've always been saying this on the show all the time. Any investigations that they're doing now, like everybody, a lot of people, I want to see arrests now. Why aren't they arrest indictments? Well, I'm going to tell you guys, because you cannot rely on whatever evidence that they have in their hand from prior investigations, because you don't know what they investigated, if they did it thoroughly, or what they left out, or what they destroyed. So they have to reinvestigate. And you don't want to come with these type of indictments on these high-profile people. You want to come correct.
Make your point, George. Think of the Warren Commission for JFK. They literally buried and misdirected more information than you can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, our government's been doing it for years. And no matter what happens, the only way is to peacefully, through the courts, abolish our government and start a new one. Because it's just too far gone. It's over.
The Department of Injustice, I feel like, is so corrupted in the way that they actually do their prosecutions. I don't think it's equal application of the law. I don't think they follow the rule of law. I think that the system has been created and it surrounds procedural blocks. It's not about the facts or the evidence. Let's face it, a 98% conviction rate puts everything into question. But here's my concern. It's very simple when it comes to indictments on regular citizens. If they wanted to indict Sam Bushman, they indict him on whatever the basic first parts of the case are. And then to get you to cooperate and go along with a plea agreement rather than going to trial, they threaten you with a superseding indictment. I don't understand why.
Which is flat out
playbook model,
which is flat out tampering with reality when you do that. I mean, people cave to the threat, Lance.
Yeah,
when
of course.
The threat's probably not even real.
5 years for pleading out now, and then you get threatened with 50 years, Sam. Of course, you're concerned about being away from your family, and you know that 50 years is a death sentence, basically. And that's, to me, it's extortion, bribery, and threats, right? It's malfeasance, nonfeasance, and misfeasance by government officials. So what I'm concerned with is, like, say, Brennan, for example. They missed a deadline the other day. Brennan testified and lied in front of a bunch of oversight committees, a bunch of Congress. But they missed a deadline. A lot of that stuff now, the statute of limitations ran out. Why didn't Brennan get that early indictment? And then they could have done the same thing they do to the American public. They could have used the superseding indictment.
Yeah, but they don't want to do that. He's an insider. He's above the law. They're slow walking it to make you just incensed and frustrated and angry and love Donald and hate everybody else. And we're going to slow walk this whole thing. I mean, that's really what I see. And everything we point at points to that. Now he testified and we got the goods, but it's too late. So-and-so testified, but in fact, he was going to testify, but he's so old, he can't even really testify. So-and-so's incompetent to testify. And everything we can do to make sure no one really goes to jail is what they're doing.
You know, George, we were talking about this the other day, and you said you got to be patient. My concern is the systems have always worked on the American public. Why do they seem to be so selective? And you commented that, they have to do this investigation, and you might very well be right. But, I'm just concerned that when it comes to a lot of these crimes, that they're ongoing. And what's the negative impact of what these people are doing to the country?
It's a fair question. And I pray that I'm wrong, George. I pray that I'm wrong about this.
You are wrong. I'm right. As you said before. No, I mean, listen.
So the good news is, since George is right, then we're going to watch tons of people go to jail. The only question we'll ask, the only question we'll ask George is this, when we come back from the break. When, my friend? Because when seems to be tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes, buddy. Hang tight. Liberty Roundtable live.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
According to a statement by the president, these files contain massive evidence of wrongdoing. It'll soon be made public. That doesn't mean there'll be prosecutions. Nope. So, George, if we're wrong and you're right, my question to you, my friend, is it can't be tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. When?
Okay, first of all, I didn't say they're going to be guaranteed arrests. I never said that. I was talking about doing the proper investigations. Do I have faith in our GOP or Trump administration to actually hand out arrests? No, I really don't.
Okay.
I don't, because, and take, for example, we have the, who's the lady, the governor of Federal Reserve, where Trump just fired her, and now she's suing to stay. She said she's not leaving.
Yeah.
Well, so you have a prime example. She did commit mortgage fraud. I'm going to say allegedly, so we don't get in trouble. They have the documents. It's pretty much in black and white. They could just arrest her right now.
Lisa Cook, by the way.
Lisa Cook. They can arrest her right now and just, there you go. And
that's what they'd do if it was me or Lance. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, we'd be in a brink.
Tomorrow, bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow. See, I'm not waiting for tomorrows. My thing is I'm tired of tomorrows. I want to see some high-level arrests. I think the shakedown, listen, the wheel works when you're in a drug organization, right? They go out to the lower level dealers or the street dealers, and they snatch a few of them up, and then they threaten them with lots of federal time, and they work their way to the center of the hub. The situation for me is, first of all, Lisa Cook is a different example for me. Not because she's not guilty of mortgage fraud, but I don't think she's a deep stater. Oh. I think she's just incompetent, and she manipulated the system to her own benefit. What I'm talking about are the Christopher Wrays.
I used to be a mortgage broker, so you say that it's your primary residence, and you just get better rates on both houses. So she'd be proud of the system. We got to find out how much she owes to pay back the taxpayers, but okay.
All right, I got to say something, Lance, because you should have a smile on your face right now because this just came out. Are you ready, guys?
Uh-oh.
Trump calls for George Soros and Alex Soros to be charged under RICO statute for funding violent protests and much more. Be careful. We're watching you.
Yeah, but it won't hold any effect. He's not an American citizen.
It's very simple. George
What do you mean?
Soros,
They got pride. They live in here in the States. Yeah, what are you talking about, Sam?
He's got a mansion in upstate New York that he resides
And hold on.
in the United States.
But hold on. Time out. If you're from another country and you're committing crimes in this country, what do you mean? You can't get charged or arrested? Since when?
Well, so let's
Since
talk
when,
about
Sam?
this for a second. Hold on. First off, let's pick it apart one piece at a time. Is George Soros an American citizen?
I would guess he has dual citizenship.
Okay, I don't believe in dual citizenship. That's a fraud.
Well, you don't believe in it, but they have it, so you have to go by what's.
Oh, they have it.
there.
So is he an American citizen?
Well, if he has dual citizenship, yes.
All right. So we're saying that George Soros is an American citizen. I don't know if that's
Alex Soros married an American citizen, Aberdeen. So.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So the next question is this then. Are we just going to talk or are we really going to arrest George? Like,
Listen.
what's the deal?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, that's the whole that was part of the conversation for the last 20 minutes. Are we going to see arrests?
I've been screaming this from the rooftops for a very long time that if I was president of the United States, I would have walked in within a couple of days and put George Soros and Alexander Soros on the International Terrorist Watch List, which would have allowed me to deploy military assets against them. And I would have grabbed them and stuck them down in Gitmo so deep, and I would have given them a 3-day military tribunal for treason, sedition, and seditious conspiracy. Now, of course, those laws would be different depending on their citizenship status. But as an international terrorist, it kind of takes the gloves off. I believe that they have taken an incredible amount of advantage. First of our financial system, USAID proved that they received literally millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money, which they put back into what I would consider election interference. And I think it's a RICO, racketeering, and concurrent criminal enterprise operation. They've been doing it for a very long time. They've been very vocal and very active. Look at Jenna Griswold, the ties to Jenna Griswold here in Colorado. A lot of people argue that it's not of concern. At the end of the day, I don't think Soros and George or Alexander should be allowed to operate within the borders of the United States. But I would go much further. Like I said, they'd be in Gitmo and they would have got a 30-day tribunal. That would have been the end of it. I think at the end of the day, there has to be a swift arm of the law. There has to be swift justice. When you know somebody's up to the things like the Soroses are, you can't give them a second chance. They have a lot of money and they have a lot of resources.
All right. So George Soros is a citizen. He's been a citizen since 1961. He's a naturalized citizen born in Hungary. But the headline that I'm seeing says Trump urges criminal charges against George Soros' son, according to Yahoo, but not necessarily George Soros. Is it George too then, George?
It says Trump calls for George Soros and Alex Soros to be charged under a RICO statute for funding violent protests and much more. I mean, listen, either way, George Soros is on his way out. But so, one way they could do it, we can put sanctions on them or sanction their bank accounts, put freeze on their bank accounts. They want,
No, I don't accept that.
Lance,
freezing their bank
first,
accounts
Lance,
isn't enough for
quiet,
them.
Lance.
There's only one way.
Lance, quiet.
Hold on.
I did not finish talking.
Hold on, go ahead.
One way to start is you cut off their money, freeze their bank accounts, so they can't try to escape or do this. But a prime example is It's known that George Soros and his son, they funded those Texas Democrats that fled to Illinois. And why I don't have faith in our justice system is, Texas is a red state, and Texas is known for everything they do in Texas, they go big. They had a perfect opportunity to arrest these Democrats that fled the state for 2 weeks that the state of Texas could not govern. Their citizens were left 2 weeks without nobody governing the state because the Democrats weren't there. And, and you see the GOP in Texas, we're not going to sanction them or do anything. But then, you had Ken Paxton, you had Governor Abbott always talking with this, and that. A lot of theatrics, a lot of clown show stuff. But once again, no arrest. What are they afraid of? What is it? Because you're a politician, you can't get arrested, you're above the law? I mean, someone explain it.
So far, that's the reality check we're facing, Lance.
Here's my thing. If Sam Bushman was funding violent protests They wouldn't wait. The normal process for the Department of Justice is to indict, arrest, and then argue for no bond. Argue that you're too much of a danger, and then, of course, all your assets are frozen. You don't have any access to anything. They take away your passports. It's over with. And I don't understand why. I mean, I do understand why, but I don't think it's acceptable that George Soros or Alexander Soros are being treated with a different level of status than any American citizen. I agree with you, George. Those Democrats should have been arrested. But that's the pathetic nature of the Republicans, right? They talk and they're loud, and Ken Paxton and likes to, oh yeah, we're going to do this. Abbott, oh yeah, we're not going to allow this to continue. But it just goes on and on and on. I'm tired of the talk.
Yeah, my response. My response to the headline that George just threw out for us. I pray it's real.
So I'm going to hear.
In my mind, it's like this: lock her up. Once Trump gets in office, he's like, "Hey, leave Hillary alone." I've got sound bites where people are attacking George Soros to Donald Trump, and Donald says, "Leave George alone."
No, he did say that a while back. 100% right. But this is, I believe, all before, they did all the lawfare against Trump and locked him up. So I don't know. I think his position changed. But I'm looking at his True Social account, and he did post that on True Social, where he says George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO. So he did. That's come from Trump on his True Social account.
So the president says he should be charged, but is he really going to be charged? Is it just babble from the president? I don't mean to be rude, but Trump talks a lot, and very few things really actually happen, right?
Well, let me ask you this, Sam. What's your position on the J6 committee and the J6 alleged insurrection? I call it the Fedsurrection. What's your position? Because I think Pam Bondi just came out and did something extremely interesting.
Well, my opinion is they're slow walking it. They wanted to release some people and get some brownie points. They're slow walking it, and you'll never point the turret at the government where it belongs for their criminal activity there. You'll never get to the real bottom of it. At the end of the day, pardon the pun, a few low-level heads will roll maybe or something else, but nothing will really happen in terms of the real truth. Why do I say that? Because I don't see any action at all.
No,
Lance? None.
I agree with you, and that's my issue. I think that it was a Fedsurrection. I think it was orchestrated. I think Nancy Pelosi and many others created that. They used lethal munitions to agitate the crowd and try to cause an insurrection-style event that they could film and video.
Yeah, we've got less than a year to take action, or else it's going to be, hey, we're battling for the House and the Senate. If we're not very careful, we're already almost in that cycle. And then they're going to be like, well, let's tease the public till after the elections. And then if they lose, okay, all I'm telling you is we're already running up against the deadlines, folks.
No doubt.
And I know people are saying, Sam, be patient. Sam, come on, you're just too. I don't think so.
I don't think a presidential pardon is enough for what they did to these people. The people that were peacefully protesting and got attacked, and what happened to those people, the consequences of those actions, the ongoing consequences of their incarcerations and their indictments. Presidential pardon is great. I appreciate the fact that he did it, but it's not enough, because when you take a presidential pardon, you have to admit guilt. It's part of the pardon. At the end of the day, I don't agree with that, because I believe that the federal government was involved in everything to do with the J6 insurrectionist style event, even though I don't believe it was an insurrection. My point is, let's find the people that were that really were responsible. Let's charge them criminally, and let's vacate the sentences of all the indicted individuals. Right now, the Proud Boys have filed a civil case, and Pam Bondi has filed to dismiss the case, even though they have rock-solid proof of all of the allegations of the claim. She's procedurally trying to block it, and she's not looking at the facts whatsoever.
Shame on her. We're out of time this hour, Lance. By the way, there's an active shooter reported right now at Minneapolis Catholic School. Prayers are with those people. Hang tight. Hour 1 in the can. Hour 2 coming up. You're watching and listening to Liberty Roundtable Live with George Balloutine, Lance Migliaccio, thebigmig.com. Check out their weekend radio show and their incredible TV shows every day on Rumble, X, YouTube, and more. God save the Republic of the United States of America.